Sixth grade. We are continuing on in chapter 19 this week. This will be sections 3 through 5 of Strengthening the Monarchy. Your review this week will be on Thursday at 1 o'clock at the normal time. Friday will be your test. I'll have it uploaded for you. Should be by 9 o'clock Friday morning. And you can take it and try to get it back to me. You can get it back to me that day or try to have it back to me by the end of the day, Sunday. So as we go along, once again, think about any questions you might have or anything you don't understand in the notes. Last time we talked about Spain and England, the strengthening of their monarchies during that time, the time frame of the 13, 14, 1500s into the 1600s. We're going to start off today talking about France. And Henry IV would become, he was a French king, he would become king in 1589, and he founded what they called the Bourbon dynasty, which ruled France until the early 1800s. Henry IV was a Protestant, but he converted to Catholicism to quiet his Catholic opponents, obviously for political type reasons. Remember, we've studied the Reformation in England, and as well as with Martin Luther in Germany, and a lot of the conflict that this caused. So he converts to Catholicism, but he believed that someone's religious beliefs really didn't need to interfere with their loyalty to the government. So he issued an edict about this, the Edicts of Nantes or Nantes or Nantes. And that's listed in your notes. It's 1598, and it allowed Protestant worship to continue in areas where Protestants were in majority, but barred Protestant worship in Paris or in the Catholic strongholds, the area that was just already dominated by Catholics. It also granted Huguenots the same civil rights as Catholics. And the French Huguenots were basically French Protestants, is the term they use for them, and that term is in your book, in your notes, so you'll need to know that. The person who's really recognized as the most powerful Bourbon monarch was Louis XIV. He ruled for 72 years. He became king in 1643 at the age of 5, which is the longest reign of any European monarchy. Of course, he didn't really call the shots when he was 5, but that's when he did become king. He was known as the Sun King, S-U-N, but I do have that in your notes because it was thought that nobility and royalty throughout Europe really revolved around him. And he was the one that, he's one of the kings that was said to us, had said, I am the state. I actually put it in the French quotations out beside the translation in your note, l'état c'est moi. I think I'm saying that correctly or pronouncing, but that means I am the state. So he emphasized a strong rule. We're talking about, an absolute monarchy, and he believed in having a strong monarchy, and he feared disorder without it. So he felt very strongly about absolute monarchy, and was later supported by one of his church officials, one of the leading church officials of the time, Jacques Bousset, during the 1600s. And Bousset believed that kings only needed to answer to God. This is where we talked about divine right in the last lesson, that they should act. They really only answer to God. They don't answer to anybody else. So they should act but they did say they should act with humility and restraint. That oftentimes does not happen with people, period, but especially people who believe they have absolute power over others. But Louis XIV is considered the most powerful of the Bourbon rulers. His policy, he viewed the Huguenots as a threat to his absolute monarchy. Many of them were military leaders, and many of them were prosperous merchants, so he viewed that as a threat. And he wanted them to accept Catholicism. And he felt like that would bring more unity and show a sense of loyalty to him as the king. A lot of these absolute rulers in any kind of situation, they want a sense of everybody's totally loyal to them and wouldn't question them in any way. So he wanted them to do that. He repeals the Edict of Nantes, and as a result, the king's policies, around 200,000 Huguenots immigrate, immigrate, not I-M, to such places as the Netherlands, England, and England's American colonies at the time. We were still English colonies under England. So a lot of them came here to what would become the United States. Some of his legacy, though, France enjoyed most of its brilliant cultural periods under Louis XIV. Builders and designers decorated palaces and churches. So he was very, very pro arts and those things as well. However, his wars were costly. It did leave the country in near financial ruin or financial problems. And the ways in which he weakened the French nobility also caused conflict between the middle class and the nobility, and ultimately would put him on brink of war years to come after Louis' death with the French Revolution. But that's what you'll need to know about Louis XIV in France. In Germany, the 30 Years' War, this was conflicts between Catholics and Protestants, and it continued in Germany after the Peace of Augsburg. The Peace of Augsburg basically stated that you could be the religion would be chosen by the prince of any state. If you were the prince of a particular state. If you were Catholic, then your subjects could be Catholic. If you were Protestant, then your subjects could be Protestant. It was kind of viewed as a way of giving some choice, trying to end some of the conflicts over the Protestant and Catholic rivalries that had turned up in the 1500s after the start of the Protestant Reformation. Anyway, these disputes were complicated by the rise of Calvinism, which was a religion, a form of Christianity that had not been recognized by the peace settlement. Calvinism rose up in these areas, Germany, Switzerland. So this wasn't recognized, and this caused tension amongst the Calvinists. And in 1618, the 30 Years' War began. Once again, this was a civil war between Catholic princes and Protestant princes. And when the war finally ended in 1648, the outcome was further weakening of Germany and the rise of France as Europe's leading power at that particular point in time. The Peace of Westphalia ended the 30 Years' War. It did recognize Calvinism as an official religion. It also divided the Holy Roman Empire into more than 300 separate states. So you'll need to know that. I do have the Peace of Westphalia there listed in your notes in what it did. We're going to talk a little bit more about this time in that 30 Years' War and some of the German leaders as well as some of the Russian leaders during this time frame more tomorrow. So we'll see you then.